bagi, menjadi, tidak. Cantik, main kelas dulu ya. Guys, bertiga doang kita nih guys.
Aduh, iya guys.
Lo di mana Cia?
Di tempatnya Akmal.
Oh, di tempat Akmal. Kemarin juga di Akmal. Gue nanti habis webinar ke kantor sih.
Ini diriku mau ke kantor tapi.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Mal, kita kapan ke FX, Mal? Bakalan
Mal,
berdua ke FX.
FX. Waduh.
Bakalan berdua ke FX. Cari-cari apa kayak gitu. Dulu sih FX banyak.
Baik, nyelesain tor dulu, nyelesain ini dulu ya. Skrip dulu.
Oh
Tuh.
iya, belum. Gimana Abang Akmal?
Bro Akmal gimana Bro Akmal? Mula
Gue Punan
Akmal.
Batu udah mau kelar nih. Gue selain ngundangin media buat SMMA, ngundangin media buat Punan Batu. Gue kayak kontak media tiga kali gitu. SMMA, Punan Batu, sama satu lagi apa ya?
Apa
Apa
tuh?
lagi? Gue satu lagi. Webinar, sama ada satu lagi deh kayaknya. Kayak redundant gitu gue mau ngontak orang yang sama.
Orang yang sama. Oh jadi kata. Ya.
Kan Akmal, kan dikasihnya kaos doang, kagak dikasih celana sama daleman.
Lah, kan emang dia nyebur, Mbak.
Nyebur, cuy. Kalau yang di belakang itu dalam.
Oh ya udah berarti nanti kalau pas konfirmasi suruh bawa yang berangkat aja yang suruh bawa baju saat ini. Bukan baju berarti satu style.
Harus,
Kalau baju ya kalau baju kan bisa pakai
harus membawa pakaian,
iya,
harus
pakaian
membawa
ganti.
pakaian ganti.
Eh, satu style.
Mm-mm.
Emang dalam ya tempatnya? Apa udah pasang
Eh,
gitu? Pasang.
Iya,
Belum
yang
dong,
terakhir kemarin yang lo datang tuh pas apa? HSBC ya? HSBC sih dalam
iya,
kok, tinggal sepinggang.
sepinggang doang. Ya, berarti basah juga.
Iya. Ayo cepet, mah kita selesaikan konser-konser. Abis itu masih ada tiga lagi nih. Mas Loa nih, ntar gue di downter lagi sama Mas Loa.
Iya, ini mau diberesin konsernya.
Konser, gue mau tanya Ocep bentar-bentar. Ternyata katanya Mbak Iki tuh si Ocep punya yang udah dia kasih materi buat ke BKSDA. Siapa tahu bisa buat ini.
Boleh, boleh.
Yang infografisnya udah belum, Bu? Yang cuman bikin kayak pointers-pointers gitu.
Udah.
Udah ya?
Kan udah gue kirim ya, belum ya?
Belum.
Oh ya udah ntar aku kirim.
Lagi Ocep. Selamat pagi, Mbak Alia. Good morning, Mbak Alia. Hello.
Sepertinya tidak di tempat.
Hari ini lagunya ada apa lagi? Kemarin kenapa lagu yang sama berulang-ulang ya? Kita nggak penting banget ngomongnya.
Karena glitches itu tadi, Mbak.
Aduh. Kenapa kok tumben, Pong?
Iya, nggak tahu kenapa.
Kajian lo banyakin hari ini.
Wah, hari ini aman kok.
Aman, yes. Adalah paramita tadi. Dia paramita Rusadi juga belum ini. Setelah dipikir-pikir, paramita Rusadi kalau ini mukanya mirip-mirip Dela ya.
Paramita Rusadi tuh sinetron ya dulu ya.
Adanya
Nggak
Ulfi
usah
kan.
buat-buat. Sorry. Aku baru nyampe kantor.
Itu yang penyanyi itu ya.
Lebih ke
Itu ya sinetronnya ya.
sinetron sih ya. Tentang film zaman 80-an.
Kecil-kecil gitu kayaknya orangnya, lupa gue.
Iya, bentuk-bentuk wajahnya kalau Dela 20 kilo lebih kecil.
Wah.
Tahu. Sama Del.
Kilo anak. Bye.
Pakai coba lagi, coba apaan?
Mbak Alia. Mbak Alia tuh namanya Rahma Alia kan, bukan Alia Rahma.
Iya tuh Kakak Yudi tuh. Kemarin udah diganti balik lagi ya, Yud.
Apa? Oh iya. Ya ampun, maaf.
Parah sih.
Alia babe, Rahma Alia babe.
Oke, maaf Mbak.
Yudi Mulyadi.
Yes babe, jangan mulia di Yudi babe.
Guys, 10 menit terakhir aku izin out bentar ya.
Izin apa?
Out bentar.
Ketawa-ketawa outnya gitu. Hah? Out aja, nggak usah ketawa-ketawa.
Ya nih mau war tiket.
Oh serius?
Oh alah.
Nggak bisa deh. Ya
Malu deh
ampun.
kamu dengan konser-konsermu.
Iya.
Aduh, mumpung nih.
Hai Mbak Alia, hello. Hai Mbak Nisa, hello. Mbak Alia ini mungkin nggak kedengeran kali ya?
Mungkin. Atau mungkin masih menjauh.
Oh, the webinar has started. Ya udah, gue loopingnya dulu ya.
Udah direkam. This webinar is recorded.
Automatically cek kalau udah on.
Udah jam 8 ya.
Iya.
Enakan gini sih udah pada lupa ya.
Halo, selamat pagi. Ada Pak Ruslandi ya? Sama, oh ya, Pak Ruslandi dulu deh. Pak Ruslandi. Oke, mungkin nggak ada. Hi, good morning, Alex.
Good morning.
Okay, great. I can hear you clearly. Would you like to test your camera?
Exactly.
Okay, great, great. Do you have the virtual background?
Virtual background.
Yeah,
I think I'm blurry, yeah?
just if you have it. I mean, we have a dedicated virtual background for this event.
Oh, I
But-
don't know how to do that.
Okay, no problem then. This is good.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
problem.
is there a picture that I should download or something like that?
Well, there is. Who's your contact person? Is it Ganga?
Yes, Ganga.
Okay. I'll ask Ganga to send the virtual background then.
Okay,
And
thank you.
maybe you can figure it out, but it's okay if you can't. Totally
Okay.
fine.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Alex. Pak Ruslandi, kedengeran nggak ya, Pak? Kayaknya masih nggak ada ya. Mas Gangga, nanti tolong bantu kirimin virtual background ke Alex, boleh ya? Gak ada juga Mas Gangga. Oke, never mind. Pak Alia?
Halo, good
Halo,
morning,
Mbak.
Mbak.
Aman, Mbak?
Yes. Ya, mau dicek dulu, you want me to
Boleh,
check
kita cek dulu ya.
video?
Oke,
Yeah, so
sip.
it's
Hari
okay.
ini cerah dengan hijau ya, baiklah.
Yeah,
Oke, great,
I
great.
hope that, yeah.
Oke, thank you,
so
Mbak.
much.
Yuk. Selamat pagi, Pak Bondan.
Halo, selamat pagi, Mbak. Ya.
Ya, aman ya, Pak, suara, koneksi internet oke?
Oke.
Oke. Kamera boleh coba dites, Pak?
Boleh, sebentar ya.
Oke,
Cukup ya?
sip. Bagus banget.
Oke.
Terima
Terima
kasih ya.
kasih.
Yuk. Pak Ruslandi, kedengeran nggak, Pak? Halo, Pak siapa ya? Ya, Pak Ruslandi aja kan yang tinggal belum. Pak Ruslandi kayaknya belum di tempat nih.
Halo,
Hei, Pak. Kedengeran?
halo. Yuk,
Oke. Boleh tes kamera nggak, Pak? Oke, belum. Oke, udah. Sip. Sip dengan seragam YK-nya, Pak ya. Terima kasih, Pak.
oke,
Oke, selamat pagi.
pagi.
Selamat pagi, Pak Gusti. Halo, Pak Gusti.
Selamat pagi, Mbak.
Iya,
Gimana Pak? Bisa
suaranya
kedengar
aman,
suaranya?
Pak. Suara
Kalau-
Bapak aman nih kayaknya.
Hah?
Tinggal tes kameranya.
Oke.
Ah,
Oke.
Oke, Pak. Sip. Bapak ada virtual background yang acara ini nggak ya?
Kayaknya belum terima ya. Enggak tahu, saya lupa saya. Sepertinya belum ada.
Oke, coba aku minta tolong dari tim NCS-nya ya.
Ya.
Oke. Terima kasih Pak
Hai.
Gusti.
Maaf ya. Saya baru terima dari Pak Gangga, so I can forward it to you, Gusti, if you want,
Oh,
the
oke.
background.
Oke, Alex. You can speak
Thanks,
Indonesian?
Alex. Alex yang step Malay, yes.
Oh, bagus banget ya. Oke,
Maybe Alex just send through chat or what?
To email, Ken?
Okay.
Is it
Oh,
okay?
email is okay. That's good.
Ah.
Thanks.
Oke, terima kasih.
Oke, terima kasih.
Sama.
Hello, everyone. A very good morning, rise and shine to all of you. So, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, also respected colleagues. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome again to today's webinar. We met yesterday and the day before, but today we'll be talking again through this webinar. It is initiated by the National Research and Innovation Agency, or BRIN, in collaboration with Yayasan Konservasi Alam Nusantara. I hope you are all well and healthy and ready to start the day. My name is Rahma Alia, and again, I will moderate our last webinar series titled From Science to Policy, Tropical Peatlands as a Key Role in Mitigating Climate Change. Now, for 3 consecutive days from May the 15th until 17th, which is today, we have discussed and will discuss various issues on tropical peatlands in mitigating climate change with experts from Indonesia, as well as abroad. Now, this webinar series was conducted to commemorate the World Biodiversity Day that falls on the May 22nd annually. This webinar series will try to understand how the research results are used as the basis for climate change mitigation policies, both in Indonesia and in other countries, which will ultimately have an impact on biodiversity conservation. Now, biodiversity crisis and climate change usually go hand in hand. Global warming will be unmanageable without protecting and restoring ecosystem. So that's going to be what we'll discuss today. And to kickstart our last webinar series, let us greet our arsenal of speakers and experts this morning. So I'd like to say welcome and very good morning to Professor Gusti Ansari, Professor Soil Science Department and Environmental Science from Tanjung Pura University. Good morning to you, Professor. How are you?
Morning.
Gusti?
Good morning, Rama. Sorry. Yeah. I'm okay. Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here. Yeah.
Glad to have you too, Professor Gusti. Thank you so much for being here. And also, good morning, Alex Cobb from Center for Environmental Sensing and Modeling, Singapore MIT Alliance for Research and Technology. Good morning to you. Where are you, Alex?
I'm
Are
in
you in the
Singapore.
South Asian Hemisphere? Singapore.
Yeah.
Okay, so very good
Yeah.
morning.
Morning.
Great to have you here. And
Thank you for having me.
also, welcome and good morning, yes, to Bondan Winarno, researcher at Research Center for Ecology and Ethnobiology, or PREE, National Research and Innovation Agency from BRIN. Good morning, Pak Bondan.
Good morning, Mbak Alia. Good morning, all. Professor Gusti, Professor Alex.
Good morning, Pak.
Yes, great to have you too, Pak Bondan. And also, I'd like to say welcome to Pak Ruslandi, the Terrestrial Program Director of YECAN. And also, good morning to all of you. This is our last day of the webinar series. So on Monday, we analyzed the results of GHG calculation studies in peatland ecosystem. And yesterday, we focused on forest and peatland fires, as well as policies and efforts to deal with them. Soon today, we'll concentrate our attention to groundwork and innovation in tropical peatland and management. Now, for those of you who have questions, feel free to write it down in the question and answer column. The committee will select 3 questions in stages to be answered by the speakers during the Q&A session later. But all the speakers are also welcome to answer the questions right away in the Q&A box. And also souvenirs are available for the 5 selected inquiries. Okay, so let's get our focus on today's theme. So peatlands are seen as an important part of a nature-based climate solution. Areas of peat ecosystems can store around 30 to 40 of global soil carbon deposits, making it one of the largest carbon stores in the world and contributing to global climate change mitigation and adaptation efforts. There has been studies on biodiversity of peat swamp forests in Southeast Asia, highlight high value diversity of peat swamp forests in this region. Therefore, it is important to manage peatlands. Now, handling peat governance is not easy. It takes many aspects, including technical, economic, social, as well as legal and policy aspects. However, basically, peatlands can be managed properly, and some of them can be protected, including peat domes, and those that have been damaged can be restored. Arrangements for water management and fire control can also be priority for further handling. Therefore, cooperation between elements of society, law enforcement, accompanied by strong policies and regulations, play an important role for the sustainability of the ecosystem. So again, today we'll cover the benefits of peat as an environmental archives, which describes climate change, and the function of peat as a very large carbon store. That will be explained by Professor Gusti Ansari from the Tanjung Pura University, and then followed by a presentation by Alex Cobb on can we measure peatland carbon storage capacity from space? That'll be interesting too. And a presentation that will be delivered by Mr. Bondan Winarno from BRIN regarding raising community involvement and collective action in peatland restoration. Lessons from the establishment of a community-based water brigade, which is expected to provide an overview for all of us on how best to manage and innovate peatland management in the future. All right, enough for me to speak. Let us welcome the first speaker of the day as we invite Professor Gusti Ansari to start his presentation. And your time allocation is about 15 minutes, Professor. The time is yours.
Thank you very much, Bu Rahma. Yeah. First of all, I would like to thank Yakan and Brain to have this opportunity. Yeah. This I feel an honor to be a presenter in this good meeting. So also good morning for all of you, Pak Bondan, also my friend Alex, and also all participants here. So in this morning, I would like to present our knowledge or limited knowledge on tropical peatland and also paleo climate as requested by the organizers. Okay. Okay, just read it. Okay. Why he doesn't have, okay. Okay. This is my presentation highlight. So as we know that peatland occurs in all climate systems, from cold to humid and warm climates. And secondly, peatland is a wetland landscape that harbors a lot of water and carbon. And thirdly, carbon emission from degraded peat are very big or enormous. So let's see distribution of global peat. This is by Zhu et al., published 2018. So the total peatland globally about 423 million hectares. Okay, you can see not much tropical peatland here. It's quite little in Southeast Asia, in Africa, and also in South America. Most peatland occur in northern hemisphere, and then very recently, this published by UNEP, global peatland assessment. Yeah, you can see the global peat now estimated up to 500 million hectares. Still, there are many peatland on the northern hemisphere. Why this happens?
Excuse me, Professor Gusti, sorry, I cut you a little bit. I think your presentation is not showing the next slide, so maybe you should just
Correct.
click on the next slide. Yes,
What happened?
but it's a good storytelling though.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah, this is still the first page on your presentation.
maybe I must
Professor.
share. Yeah? Huh? What happened? Okay.
Maybe you should just click on your next presentation.
I will click next. It is in my screen is moving. Yeah.
Is it already on the slideshow mode?
Yes, it is like so. Yeah.
Okay, let's see.
Sorry.
Okay. There it is. This is the presentation highlights.
Oh yes. Okay.
Yes. Go ahead, sir.
So you could you have the sense what? So okay. So let me continue. This is my presentation highlight. So as you know, peatland occurs on all climate systems, from cold to humid and warm climate. Peatland is a wetland landscape that harbors water and carbon. And then carbon emission from degraded peats are very big or enormous. Next slide, please. So now we look at the estimated of global peat distribution. This is by Xu et al., published 2018. So let's say a total about 420 million hectares of global peat in the world. So covering about 3 or up to 4% of the landscape. You can see there's a lot of peat in the northern hemisphere in contrast to the in the tropical region, right? Next slide, please. And then we have a new report published in the book called it Global Peatland Assessment. It was published last year. So the total peat now become estimated about 500 million hectares. Because these different peat definition they use, they use now peat is has the organic matter thickness is greater than 30 centimeter, 30 centimeter, not 40 or 50 centimeter. It's most peatlands. You can see increased number of peatland also here. Next slide, please. So let's see, focus on the peatland in Southeast Asia. So we have Chengnamba. In 2020, our government published Indonesia only has 13.4 million hectares. In the past, maybe up to 21 or 27 million hectares on Indonesia, because we know that peatland, Indonesia has the largest peatland distribution in Southeast Asia, followed by Malaysia, and then other countries. This is Myanmar, have some peatland also, Brunei Darussalam, the Philippines, Thailand, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, all ASEAN countries, maybe except Timor-Leste, have some kind of peatland. Next slide, please. So this is the under publication, So this is the total. You can download it maybe from the internet. So total peatland, they said Papua in fact has more peatland. Papua, you can see, is more interesting area. They have some highland peatland. Other peatland in Kalimantan, for example, or in Borneo, mostly in the coastal region, and also in eastern Sumatra, also coastal in the coastal area. But most of our peatland are drained and converted into some kind of agriculture. Maybe very little, maybe 5 or to 6 million hectares are still undisturbed peatland in Indonesia. Next slide, please. Okay, how we define peat? Is it only peat thickness or peat depth? Because if in Indonesia we call it peat, at least have a minimum 50 centimeter of organic matter. It occurs in Indonesia and Malaysia. But this definition can be debatable because a shallow organic matter depth possibly still function as a significant carbon sink, assuming the peatland accumulate carbon. We need to rethink this definition not only by the tip depth or organic matter thickness only. Next slide, please. Okay, this as illustration, if we define peat greater than 30 centimeter of organic matter in Russian Federation, they're covering only 139 million hectares. If we reduce the definition of organic matters greater than 10 centimeter, we're covering 360 million hectares. The number is increasing about 2.6 times. Yeah. Next slide, please. Okay, so what are the major climates and global peat landscape? In Asia, generally we have 33% of global peatland. This is my global peatland here, 500 million hectares. So we have like a tropical rainforest, according Koffen and Geiger climate classification, is call it AF. So, and also tropical monsoon. And North America, maybe it's cold, some temperate, cold and humid, yeah. And then in Latin America also we have tropical monsoon, and Europe also mostly maybe cold climate, yeah, with humid. Africa, tropical rainforest, and also monsoon. Some small peatland in Oceania, in sub-Antarctic islands, yeah, in southern hemisphere. Next slide, please. So what factor affecting peatland formation? First of all, the climate. We need a good temperature, maybe not ice, yeah, but maybe only frosty until maybe 26 degrees centigrade. Rainfall maybe from 800 to 6,000 millimeter per year, the annual rainfall. Of course, in Indonesia, we know that our rainfall is quite high, maybe around 3,000 per thousand, can be up to 7,000 impact in some area. And then other factor is geomorphology and geochemistry. We have should be low-lying surface and depression area, and this create waterlogged condition, and also there must be acidic environment, and also deficiency of major nutrients. That's why all peat soil is considered as marginal or suboptimal soil. It's not so good for agriculture. Yeah. And then we need a peat forming vegetation. In temperate peat, in cold area, they have sphagnum moss mostly. But in tropical countries like in Indonesia, we know that peat associated with mangrove trees and also freshwater peat swamp forest trees. For example, species Sorea or Maranti, Palacium, and also Comprotecarpus rotundatus. And it is important also the absence of fires, because in fire occur, the peat will be lost. Yeah. Next slide, please. So what are peat type according to water sources? So maybe 3 major type of tropical peat in Indonesia. we have topogeneous pits. So this because of the not from the water is not from the rain, but it's maybe from groundwater or overflow the rivers. Yeah, this usually they call it maybe in the beginning we have some topogeneous pit, or it depends on the geographical location where the pit is spawned. And we have homogeneous high pit, according to Sifirman here, nanti I show you later the cross section. And also homogeneous basin and coastal pit. This depends on the rainwater. So we can see here pit can be by water inundation almost all the year. Well, soil taxonomy calls suborder Wasis, and maybe some partially inundation, yeah, according to the water level. And we have a subpris, hemis, and fibris. And naturally non-inundation, they have a polyspid here. But here's the vertical axis apply for all this area, subpris, hemis, and fibris. We can see that a fibris more woody peatland, and hemis in the middle or intermediate, and subpris more compact and unclearly distinction or distinguish or the original of the plant or the trees that compose peatland here. Next slide, please. Okay, this is the homogeneous pit in Central Kalimantan. It was published in 1988 by late Superman. You can see like this cutting and ripa. This is a basin pit, the homogeneous basin pit. And it has some podzol and mineral soil, and some high elevation here. What they Superman call it high pit, homogeneous high pit, most shallow here, but most scattered here. They have also some original ripa originated in the peatland, and this is also mineral, and this is the ripa. So right now in Indonesia we call it maybe this pit hydrological unit, yeah, between two water bodies. So the same thing here, Kanting and ripa, and they have same Kempang ripa, basin pit, and a high pit area. The high pit here probably more fragile than a basin pit in terms of disturbance, yeah, because they have some sandy substrate here. Next slide, please. So when pit was formed, this we have some new data, the age of tropical pit initiation, yeah, published by Ruaimana, my student here. This is the coastal pit in Rasojaya. Rasojaya was converted in 1970s, associated with transmigration project in West Kalimantan. So, but all the peatland here, the basal date around 4,000 or 5,000 years old. You can see here the coring. In contrast, inland pit in Putu Sibau, about maybe 800 kilometers from the mouth of the Kaufas Ripa, the pit is much older. In fact, we cannot reach the pit at that time. So this is the limit of the radiocarbon dating also, about 49 or 50,000 years old, 30,000 years old. So the pit is also deeper, up to maybe 16 or more meter depth. Yeah. So this you can see here the difference of the time and relative to the climate. Yeah, but we don't find the date around 20,000 years old when the last glacial maximum occurred. So maybe the pit is not accumulate at the time. Also the early Holocene, yeah, the pit is not accumulate because of the rainfall variability. We believe, yeah. Next slide, please. So this is the simulated data of the radiocarbon date. This is the show you the basal date of the peatland in West Kalimantan province. Yeah, you can see here most of the coastal pit is much younger than the inland pit here. Okay, So we have this finding suggests that the climate was cold and humid maybe in when the initiation of the inland pit occurred, maybe 30 or 40,000 years ago in the Kapuas Basin. And climate is more variable in last glacial maximum about 20 or 21,000 years old and early Holocene. Maybe cause some pit loss here, yeah, naturally, yeah. Next slide, please. So now we have a new publication by UNEP, yeah. Global pit assessment say we have in total about 12% pit in the world is degraded, releasing about 2,000 megaton CO2 equivalent fire, but excluding fire emission. Yeah. Now we have still Indonesia emit more carbon here, yeah, annually, excluding fire. Yeah, more than 600 megaton CO2 equivalent per year emitting by Indonesia, followed by Russia, China, Malaysia, and other countries. This is the top 25 countries in the world. Yeah, so you can see here we are the largest. Yeah, also Malaysia, also China, also, yeah, and Russian Federation. Okay, this is also support the emission occur from Peatlands is a new publication by ours, Jopari Sancho, yeah, just published this month. So this annual methane emission in kilogram per hectare per year. So this degraded forest occur because about it's very high, 70, and jelutong plantation in Central Kalimantan about 2, and oil palm about 2, and small scale agriculture also is large emission. Yeah. Next slide, please. So this is the last slide for me. So in conclusion, a stable climate, in particular low temperature, especially in temperate field or cold area, and also rainfall is a key factor that determining peat formation. Rainfall stability of rainfall is very important in tropical area. And the rate of peat decomposition is controlled by low temperature, anaerobic condition. We should have low pH, nutrient deficiency, and the natural properties of peat forming vegetation. This, I mean that not all vegetation would form peat. Yeah. Under the present climate change, temperature rise and rainfall variability, the rate of peat decomposition is very likely to be faster than the accumulation rate of organic matter in peatland complex. All the degraded peats associated with drainage and land use change and also fire acts as a carbon source. Yeah. Next slide. Thank you very much for your attention. Yeah. So I return to moderator. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, very welcome. Thank you very much, Professor Gusti, for the presentation. Very interesting indeed that we got information provided by Professor Gusti that explained what lessons can we take from how the peat ecosystem benefits in mitigating climate change and its big role in absorbing and storing carbon. And Indonesia is indeed the source of that. We're the biggest in Southeast Asia, even compared to other countries like Russia, for example. All right, just a friendly reminder. If you have questions, feel free to send in your questions through the Q&A column. And since all of the presentations are conducted in English, if you need interpreter services, please just select the button on the menu and just select the preferred language that you opt to. All right, now we have the next presentation, which will be delivered by Alex. We are ready to hear our presentation and appreciate it if you can make it in about 15 minutes of duration. Go ahead, Alex.
Thank you. I try to share my screen now. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can. Very, very clear. Thank you.
And let's see. You see the next slide?
Yes, we do.
Okay, super. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, thank you, Boom Rahma. Good morning, and my sincere thanks to the organizers for the chance to talk, and also to everyone who's listening in the workshop. First, I want to thank my co-authors on the two papers I'll be talking about today, and also acknowledge my funding from the Singapore National Research Foundation. So the main question that I want to address in my talk is, can we measure peatland carbon storage capacity from space? And in the next 10 minutes, I'll try to convince you, first of all, that peatlands have carbon storage capacity, and then that the idea of carbon storage capacity is not only useful, but maybe essential to peatland restoration and fire suppression efforts. I like this idea. I hope you will like it too. And finally, that space platforms can give us critical information to predict how much vulnerable carbon there is in peatlands, how much CO2 will be emitted, or how much peat can burn if they're drained in a particular way, and how much peat and carbon can be protected by ditch or canal blocking. Okay, so first, this picture from space shows drained peatlands to the west of the Baram River and undrained peatlands to the east of the Baram River in northwest Borneo. So the drained peatlands on the west are cut up into lots of small parcels with dimensions of about 30 meters by 100 meters, and they have been subsiding, and they frequently burn. The undrained peatlands on the east side of the Baram River are separated by rivers that are maybe 2 to 5 kilometers from one another, and these undisturbed areas do not burn. Maybe there's something like peat hydrological units. So as I will try to convince you that a simple but surprisingly accurate way to think about this is that the peatlands on the west burn because they are cut into small parcels, and the peatlands on the east do not burn because they have been left big. So what do I mean by the carbon storage capacity of a peatland? Is there really such a thing? So this paper, published by Hap Ingram in the journal Nature in 1982, popularized an analysis that was already known from the work of Ivanov and other Soviet scientists, describing the limits to the growth of bogs. So in raised bogs or raised peatlands or peat domes, which includes most of the peatlands in Indonesia, peat is piling up into these mounds that are typically bounded by rivers or sometimes sand deposits. And the essence of this paper by Ingram is an attempt to describe physically how much these piles of peat can grow. So Ingram intended to describe the growth of bogs in northern peatlands, high latitude peatlands, like in the Russian Federation. In a 2017 paper in PNAS, we developed a slightly different prediction describing the limits to bog growth in Southeast Asian peat domes. And our analysis and measurement suggested that the limiting shape of these peat domes here is a shape with a uniform curvature. But regardless of whether you are convinced by our paper or by Ingram's, it's nonetheless the case that these mounds or peat domes cannot grow forever. And that's because peat is only protected from decomposition and fire where it is waterlogged. So for example, peat can't accumulate in a wall next to a river because the peat at the top of that wall or peat cliff will be dry, and then it would either decompose or burn down towards the river. So the only reason that peat can pile up high in the middle of a peat dome is because the water that flows out towards the boundaries of the dome is replaced sporadically by rainfall. And this creates the gently mounted shapes that we call peat domes. Because there's a limit to how curved they can be, it means that a bigger peat dome can hold more carbon. And that's the essence of the idea of a carbon storage capacity. So this shaded relief map that you see on the right here shows a number of peat domes that are separated by rivers in Brunei Darussalam. So these peat domes have a characteristic curvature that's related to climate and ecosystem, and I'll come back to this later. So how do they get into these shapes in the first place, though? The key feedback is that the peat surface follows the water table. So this figure from Evans et al., published in the journal Nature a few years ago, shows data from a number of tropical peatlands on the net ecosystem production of carbon versus the water table depth. So higher net ecosystem production means that the peatland is releasing more carbon into the atmosphere, and negative net ecosystem production means that there's uptake of carbon from the atmosphere. And larger water table depth means the water table is lower. So in Ingram's paper, he was thinking about peat accumulating up towards his limiting shape. So in that case, the water table is high. Peat accumulation is occurring, so negative net ecosystem production, until the peat is piled so high that the water table resides lower in the peat profile, and the decomposition of organic matter matches its production. So the whole system is moving towards a point somewhere here. But it's equally true that the peat surface will follow the water table down. So if the water table is low, decomposition of organic matter is faster than production and peat is lost. So if the water table is lowered by a ditch or a canal, the peat surface will gradually subside towards it. So for example, here is a peat dome that was cut by a canal in the 1960s or early 1970s in Brunei Darussalam. The effect of the canal was to lower the capacity of the peatland to store carbon because the water level was lowered in the canal, and the water table around the canal has formed a depression around the canal. So there used to be one big groundwater mound. I'll come back and talk about that word more in a second. And one big peat dome. But now there are two groundwater mounds. And over the last 50 years, the peat surface has been approaching a new shape with two smaller peat domes divided by the canal, corresponding to the new groundwater mounds. So all of the carbon, all of the peat on the shoulder of the canal cannot be protected from fire and decomposition by waterlogging because the canal is there. Well, we can see this process in action if we look at a profile of the elevation of the peat surface and the elevation of the water table near that canal. So the water table is drawn down in a wedge around the canal. And a good way to picture it is that the water table is a surface that is underneath the peat surface. We can't see the water table surface, and that is what hydrologists call a groundwater mound. So actually now there are two groundwater mounds, one to the west and one to the east of the canal. Right next to the canal, the peat surface is already caught up to the water table. So this area is frequently flooded. And further away, up to over 1 kilometer away, the water table is still very far below the surface. So we can be very sure that without some kind of intervention, more even than canal blocking, the peat dome will continue to subside and burn down towards the water table as it approaches its new equilibrium shape with two domes. So similarly, when a peatland is cut up with a grid of canals or ditches into very small pieces, it will subside or burn down towards a new equilibrium shape consisting of many very, very small peat domes between the ditches with a much, much lower carbon storage capacity. So one way to look at fire in drained peatlands is that it's just another way for the peat surface to catch up to the water table. So where canals are creating new groundwater mounds below the peat surface, the peat will be dry above the wedges between the new groundwater mounds. You have a ditch and there's a little wedge of dry peat up here. If we manage to prevent any ignition of the dry peat, so no cigarettes, no anything, the peat will decompose down towards the groundwater mound at typical rates of maybe a few centimeters per year. If there are ignition events of some kind, so someone sets a fire or drops a cigarette or something, the dry peat can burn in addition to decomposing, and that might remove a few tens of centimeters in an especially bad fire year. And it seems like that roughly doubles the rate of peat loss on average over many years as the peat burns down towards the water line. So with that intervention, we can be sure that this wedge of carbon above the new equilibrium shape will decompose or burn away in the long term. But how much carbon is that, and how many times can it burn? And to know that, we need to know the curvature of that equilibrium shape. So that's where the satellite data comes in. So how can we use satellite data to estimate this curvature and predict what is going to happen to our peatlands in the long term? How much carbon is there to lose? How much carbon will be lost? So we'd like to make measurements of the peat surface elevation to get the shape of the peat dome, but that's more difficult because in many places there's dense forest or other vegetation covering the forest floor. In recent work, we explored using spaceborne LiDAR platforms to measure the peat surface elevations. So these are instruments that fly in spacecraft overhead, either dedicated satellites, or there's also an instrument on the International Space Station. And they have several tracks along which they shoot pulses of light towards the Earth's surface, and then they precisely measure the time to receive any reflected light back from the surface. So combined with an estimate of the exact location of the spacecraft, this yields measurements of the position and elevation of the surfaces that reflected that light, which we call bounce points. So some of these bounce points will be on the peat surface, which is great, but many of them might be from light reflected from somewhere in the forest canopy. However, we found that because peat domes have very gentle slopes over large scales, we could spatially filter the bounce points to obtain just the bounce points from the ground. So these ground bounce points are enough to give us the curvature of the peat surface. Each one of these bumps represents a different peat dome. And that allows us to make a preliminary estimate of the equilibrium shapes that peatlands are evolving towards after cutting of canals and ditches. So in conclusion, not only do peatlands have a carbon storage capacity, but I think that thinking about them in this way and how that capacity is affected by changes in drainage networks like this provides a great perspective to make predictions about why peatlands will subside and burn, where they're going to subside and burn, and for how long. And applying this perspective in combination with spaceborne LiDAR could allow us to predict long-term carbon impacts of ditches or ditch blocking. This is possible because spaceborne LiDAR gives us an estimate of the curvature of the peat surface when it's happily waterlogged and in harmony with a groundwater mound. So we can then use that curvature to predict the long-term changes in peatlands after drainage by canals or ditches, what the total impacts could be in terms of decomposition and fire, what interventions could avoid the most emissions in the long term by protecting the most peat. So thanks very much for listening, and please don't hesitate to contact me by email if you're interested in applications of these results, or if there's anything about this that you would like to discuss further. And I'll also look forward to any questions during the question and answer session. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Alex, for the presentation. Very interesting indeed, as you already mentioned in your presentation, that drainage of tropical peatlands has caused peat decomposition and enabled large fires, releasing carbon dioxide, destroyed carbon stocks, and some long-term effects of hydrological management can be predicted using the recent theories about the morphology of peatlands and how they evolve over time. And also, very interestingly, these theories can be can use the LiDAR to help predict long-term carbon changes in tropical peatlands. All right, so we got some different perspectives just now, and as we already realized that the involvement of communities are very important in trying to save the environment, especially in peatlands. Now, I would like to invite Pak Bondan from Ecology and Ethnobiology Research Center, or PREE BRIN, to share with us the findings of raising community involvement and collective action in peatland restoration. So now in the next 15 minutes, that will be yours, Pak Bondan.
Okay, thank you, Balia. It's clear for you, my voice?
Yes, very clear indeed.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I will present a different point of view from the previous speakers related with the peatland. So in the last day today, I would like to raise the community involvement and collective action in peatland restoration. This is the case of South Sumatra community-based water brigade. So I'm thanks to the funding of our research from Kawasan ZSL 2018 to 2020. This is my team. We are from BRIN and also from the University of Jambi. Next, please. So we start with this condition. This is the 2019 condition in South Sumatra. It's close to the Jambi also. We have a big fire there, and in August 2019. So recurrent fire is significant threat to the tropical peatland, and it causes more degraded tropical peatland in this area, in this context. So anthropogenic activities, we believe that the underlying cause of these fires and also the degradation of the peatland. Next, please. I just want to flashback to 2019 that the fire occurs and we have a loss there. And estimated by World Bank, it's $5.2 billion. It's maybe less than the 2015 fires, but it caused more severe problems, not only in the peatland itself, but also in the agriculture, transportation, trade industry, and environmental sectors. And South Sumatra is one of the provinces that contribute a large area of peatland burn in 2019 instead of Central Kalimantan. Next, please. So, what already have been done for better situations? We already established some policies in land and forest fires. Yesterday, Israel also mentioned about these policies: fires, prevention, suppression, post-fire. And then to the land, to the peatland, we established BRG in 2016 to conduct peatland restoration as a legal standing institutions to conduct the restoration in peatland. It shows our commitment to get a better situations in the peatland, and BRG conducting rewetting, revitalization levels in this case of peatland restoration. So both of these policies or programs from the land forest fires and restorations, it needs strengthening coordination and collaboration amongst others, because the problem is not finished by single or some actors. It needs collaborations, not only in the national, but also in the regional Southeast Asia that yesterday Dr. Israel also mentioned. And Professor Gusti just mentioned that it is a global issue that we have to address in the future related to mitigation of climate change. And in this case, community involvement is a main actor that experience the real situations in the peatland. Perhaps some of us is just visitors as researchers to the area, but these communities, everyday daily life, they conduct the situations in the peatland. So it's important to involve, to encourage them to involve, and to motivate and to increase their capacity building in the case of peatland restoration to mitigate climate change. Next, please. So in our case, in South Sumatra, water is substantial resource in the peatland. After the community experience recurrent fires for several times and they get lost, they burn their agricultural land, burn also their house, they already burn. And they finally think that actually the substantial resource or the fundamental resource that needed in the peatland is water. And water is a main access for mobility and transportations in our cases in South Sumatra, and also source of livelihoods for the fishery, for the herbs, for the timber, for the timber forest products, and also the others. But some people often perceive as an obstacle the availability of water in the peatland. So some of them drainage the peatland to conduct the agriculture, to replicate the dryland agriculture in the peatland. That's become the problem also. Next, please. So from that condition, we then work with this in this area. This is our project site. It's located near the Jambi, and it's social forestry with partnership scheme between forest management units and also the farmer groups there. So it's almost all area in the peatland landscape and dominated by the great area. And if you see the canals below the maps, it's part of the timber plantation concentrations. So they close to these situations. And this area of prone to fires almost every dry season. So in the 2019, this is the source of haze and problem of fire in South Sumatra. And how about the community there? So they have migrant and also local people there for the livelihood. So they conducted labor, fishery, and oil palm. Previously, almost all of them are become a logger or related activities in this area. So it's the degradation of the peatland has been changed their livelihoods from previously extractive, and now they have trying to find another livelihood as a labor, and they start to learn about how to conducting agriculture in the peatland. So it's quite interesting dynamics of livelihoods because of the change of the peatland biophysical condition degradation. Next, please. So later on, we propose this community-based water brigade instead of perhaps we know about the forest fire brigades. If we talk about forest fire brigade, so we will work with the dry season and fire. But in the peatland, if we talk with water, so we can work all of the year, not only in the dry seasons, the fire season, but only in the rainy season. How to manage the water? That's how we want to transfer in a simple ways how to manage the water for the community. So how to translate our knowledge and our experience from the previous area to the local community in the simplest way. That's why the basic thinking about this water brigade. So it's part of the social forestry activity in this area, and facilitated by projects of landscape approach in this area, 2018-2020. And fortunately, we also have a program from BRG in this area. So we connect all of the program in this area from the different institutions to make communications and coordination and also collaborations at the ground level. Next, please. This is the initial stage of our process in community-based water brigade. We conducted several coordinations, informal meeting, discussions. If you know in bahasa, kita lebih sering suka ngopi-ngopi dibanding formal meeting. So we conduct more informal meeting rather than the formal meeting in any situations. It's part of us to get what kind of needs that basically they needs now from the peatland, and what is their hope to this peatland and the future's livelihood. What kind of description of future livelihood based on the peatland, and how can our program can be deal with these situations. So we conducting discussions, training, sharing session, and field practice. It's more field practice and sharing session rather than theoretical that we already provide in the previous training with different audience. Next, please. So what kind of activities that we already conducted in this community-based water brigade? So at the beginning, we conducted monitoring the canals. and the canal blockage is already built. And how is the conditions? How was the conditions? And if they are damaged, how we can repair the canal blockage? And how can we monitor the condition of water table in the canal and the river? It is a part of how we can build early warning system in the peatland, not only in the dry season, but also in the rainy season, because flooding is also become a big problem for the community. That's what we frequently focus in fires, but actually at the field level, flooding is also become a silence problem that we have to address in the future. Next, please. So not only that, this group also conducting some discussion, socialization with the farmer at the field level and the other community groups, and sharing their experience and trying to get close to the community in the field level, and how we can create a more communicative relationship with the community. And also this group involved in fire prevention activity, supporting with the several donor institutions. And in the concept of peatland restorations, we also conducted the planting trees and the degraded peatland with the endemic species and the non-timber forest product in the peatland. It came learnings moments for the community and also for us to how we can improve, not only by action to the water, but how to improve the degraded return by planting trees, endemic trees there. Next, please. So we are not alone. So we are inviting some agencies to join collective action for this repair. So we invite some, you can see a private company, timber plantations. So we also discuss with the Manggala Agni. So we invite them to transfer their knowledge how to fire suppressions and socialization and prevention activity to the community. We are also working with BRGM, the university, the research agency order, and then also the forest management unit to improve these conditions. For the community environment, how to transfer knowledge, how to build the network, and open opportunities for the repair and the community there, how to organize the small organization such as repair, and how to motivate them to maintain their motivations to join with water brigade. Next, please. So what kind of incentive that the members receive from joining these activities? It's also become a big question at the beginning of the projects. So they said that I have to fulfill my daily needs for the livelihood. So if I join with your idea, what kind of incentives or what kind of benefits? So in our team, that's why we propose a collective action and inviting some agencies. How can they share their resource to these repair activities? So we asked BRGM how if they can prepare some livelihood revitalization programs for these goals, and then from the university also how the community can have an access, not only for them to get knowledge, but how if their families got access to get a better educations in the university, how's the way? That's also a part of this incentive that we're trying to develop in this case. It's not an easy case, and then we realize this is big effort to conduct this, but with step by step we just find the realities and find the adaptive and the solution, and also the rational conditions that accepted by the community. Next, please. So this is some challenge, or actually it's more many challenges that we face. We were facing in the field. So the problem is limited resource to cover the area. There is too wide, I think. It's 3,000 hectares, and it belongs to the farmer groups, union, and the forest management union. The second is still looking for appropriate incentives for activities and providing more adaptive and feasible life options. Is also the big issue in this regulating peatland activities area. And how lower the rates of conflict amongst the community internal amongst them. And then for the long term, how can we create collaborations among stakeholders in pet landscape? Next, please.
Bondan?
Yes.
This is already closing, right? I just want to remind you that your time limit
Okay.
is actually done. So yeah, it's a closing remark.
Yeah, it's closing remark. So I just make it short. Thank you, Balia, for reminding me. Yeah, so communities around peatlands are the main actors in the sustainability of peatland restoration now and the future. And community-based water brigade perhaps is more suitable approach to involve the community to support peatland restorations based on the water resource as a main resource in the peatland. And with the complex situation on degraded peatland, promoting collective action at the field level using landscape approach will be the better option to implement and to conduct in this case. Thank you, Mbak Alia.
You're welcome, Pak Bondan. Thank you for the presentation. It's important to know that this is a collaborative effort to restore peat, especially for the ones community that are close to the peatlands. They are the ones who feel the direct impact and needs to be motivated and inspired in preserving them. Starting from the Ngopi Ngopi, as you mentioned, becomes a community that is very much motivated to preserve the peatlands in their area. So once again, thank you very much, Pak Bondan. So we have heard the 3 presentations from all of our speakers, and we have come to the question and answer session. I have checked on the Q&A box, and also the ones that are joining us offline, as Indonesians love to see the webinars together, one screen, but a lot of people watching them. So I've got 3 sets of questions here that are already on my hands. This is from the committee submitted to me. I've got for Pak Gusti, as well as for Pak Alex, and also for Pak Bondan. Let's just start with Pak Gusti. So you've got, oh my God, 4 questions here. I hope you're ready to answer these questions, Pak Gusti.
Okay.
So the first one is, there are different types. Is there any different types, ages of peat? Do you think this should be considered when we carry out protection or restoration actions? This is from Wahyu from Brin. And I'll go with the second one as well. Does the vegetation type affect the rate of peat formation? And that one is from Nurul, as well as Brin as well. Go ahead, Pak. The first 2 questions.
Thank you very much for this very interesting and good question. Yeah, this is a big question also regarding to we are going to enter the carbon trade, for example, because we have some like old peat in some part of our countries, more than about 40,000 or 30,000 years old, compared to the coastal peat is younger, maybe 5,000 or 3,000 years old. So whether we should consider that old peat make more value in terms of the as an environmental archive, this old peatland has more values because store more information like past environment in the past. We could study maybe pollen analysis or tested amoeba or other thing that contain in the peatland as can reveal the history or natural history of the region. So, but right now people do not think about this. This is good idea. Maybe try to promote that all peatland must be protected and must be treated well, yeah, in terms of how to avoid human disturbance if we still have some the remaining old peatland in this region. Yeah. Okay. So about the second question is the about
Vegetation type. It's the
vegetation part.
vegetation type.
Yeah. This is very complex also. It depends on like Alex mentioned about rain. Yeah. In tropical countries, I think rainfall is key factor that control peatland formation, because if we have good rainfall, maybe the productivity of the vegetation would be high. Yeah, but of course we need to have the good landscape also, not only rainfall. The landscape must be creating the waterlogged environment, more anaerobic, so the pit will be decomposed less than the what compost less. I mean the rate of the composition is much less than the rate of the uh, if the rate of the decomposition is higher, of course the pit will not form. This is the issue. Yeah, maybe forest trees are good here, but most we know that a pit was formed not by leaves or by leaf, but maybe by the trunks or by the roots, big root in the forest area. Yeah, in contrast to the herb or sphagnum moss in the temperate region. Yeah, is different. Yeah, different vegetation. Yeah.
All right. So thank you for answering the first two questions. Now I'll read out the third and the fourth question for you. How do you think future climate change will influence the peat accumulation or decomposition in Indonesia? That one is from Pak Adiganga from Yekan. And also the last one, are there any efforts to optimally cultivate peatlands so that they can be used as agricultural land and not damage the peat itself? From Sukur Abdurrahman, University of Sriwijaya. Go ahead, Professor Gusti.
Okay, thank you, Pak Ganga, and also Pak Syukur. Yeah. First, maybe I go with Pak Syukur. Yeah, if we convert peatland into agriculture land, so in general, peat accumulation would stop because they don't have any supplies of organic matters. So what we can do only how to carefully manage the peatland as a cultivated soil. So in this case, you need to try to reduce the subsidence rate, yeah, and also increase the organic matters input. Maybe put more organic input from outside, yeah, we bring in to the area. So maybe you can okay, you can prolong the time of the cultivation, yeah, but please do not, maybe important to note that do not use fires. If you use fire, maybe the pit will be gone, yeah, quickly. So it's very difficult question. Yeah, it's very difficult what not very difficult exercise, because as we know, like in people were living in the peatland area, so they know that pit subsides. Yeah, yeah, for example, the house is become higher and higher over time. So because the surface of pit is reduced or subsided, yeah. So it's very hard, I think, yeah. And then for Pak Ganga, yeah, we are afraid of this climate change, yeah. We don't know. We don't know the answer, but it is some debatable because of the ice melt in the temperate in the boreal area. Pit there will be oxidized, yeah, because of the high temperature. But here in Indonesia, maybe temperature is a bit increasing, but the rainfall variability will be a problem. If we have more fires, maybe this year El Nino, yeah, the pit fire cannot be controlled, yeah. So this we need to be to see to watch more on the degraded peatland area where fire might occur, recurrently, in contrast to the peat swamp forest, when they are moister, maybe it's not so susceptible to fire, hopefully the peat will still growing, we still need some studies on this, This is all my answer, Bu Rahma,
Okay, thank you so much, Professor Gussi, for answering all of the 4 questions. I hope that answers for all the inquirers. And now we've got some questions as well for you, Pa Alex. Now, I'm just going to read out the 2 questions here. So what do you think the best way to detect the peat extends from the space? Because there are plenty of wetlands, but there are not necessarily peat. So is it rather difficult to compare it visually? That's from Mr. Trian from Yekan. And also the second question is, LiDAR can help us predict carbon storage, impact drainage, but Indonesia has very large peat. Do you have any ideas for something that is cheaper? We like it cheaper, and more economical, on a national scale, not just on a project scale. From Wahyu from Bryn. Mr. Wahyu, yes. Go ahead, Pa Alex. Hello, Pa Alex, are you still here? All right, unfortunately, we have not heard Mr. Alex for now. So let's move first to Pak Bondan. Okay, I've got also questions for you, Pak Bondan. Okay, here are the questions. From your experience, what are the strategies so that community can participate in maintaining canal blocking? This is from Mr. Wigno or Pak Wigno. And the second question is for Regu Peduli Air. Is it under the guidance of legality from the village administration or Regency administration, or who? Who found the community effort to monitor the water table? That's from Pak Nofrizal. Go ahead with the question, with the answers.
Thank you for the great questions that how to involve the approach to involve the community. So from my experience in South Sumatra, the important is how to involve the community from the beginning of the process of planning of canal blocking until finish building the canal blocking. So so if they involve from the beginning until the end of the project, so actually have at least have sense of belonging to the canal blocking. Is the first. The second is perhaps we have to understand the community also have a knowledge because they live there and they understand about the condition of biophysics there. Perhaps this is perhaps our analysis about the locations of the canal blocking is not appropriate there based on their experience. So we have to listen them. And we have to analyze, is it okay? Is it good? Not only from our side or scientific side. How about their experience? That's, I think, to think, listens to the local knowledge and then involving from the beginning to raise the sense of belonging to the canal blocking and giving profit them with the benefits and the incentive. Perhaps in the short term, what kind of incentive? Because at the local level, they always think about the rational thing, the very, very basic things, but life. That's public questions, Bali. And the second one, the repair. The repair Regu Peduli Air is under the social forestry partnership scheme between forest management unit under the forestry service of provincial South Sumatra and the farmer groups unions in this case. So they have a legal license of the social forestry there, and a part of this activity is building or developing Regu Peduli Air in this case. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for the answers. I hope that is sufficient for all of you that were raising the questions. And now I'd like to try again if Pa Alex is already back with us. Alex, are you here?
Yes, I'm back. I'm sorry, my computer froze.
Oh,
I
welcome
apologize.
back. Okay, would you like me to read out the question again for you? Or?
Sure. Yeah. I cannot start my video right now.
Okay, no problem. We can
So
hear you
but-
clearly.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so you have two questions from the audience. The first one is, what do you think the best way to detect the peat extent from the space? Because there are plenty of wetlands, but probably there are not all peats. So is it rather difficult to compare it visually? That's the first question from Mr. Trian. And the second is, LiDAR can help us predict carbon storage, impact drainage, but Indonesia is very large and has very large peats. Do you have any ideas for something that is cheaper on a national scale, not just on a project scale? From Mr. Wahyu.
Sorry, who was the second question from?
From Mr. Wahyu from Brin. The
Okay.
first one was from Mr. Trian from Yekan. That was for the first one.
Pat Trian. Yeah, yes, thanks very much for the great question. So, Pat Trian, I saw your question. And I apologize, I'll respond in English. I hope it's okay. So actually, Pat Gusti has a lot of experience with this particular problem. The thing is that, as you say, it's relatively easy to spot the wetlands, the rawa, from remote sensing. But the thing is, the difference between freshwater swamp and peatland is just the thickness of the organic layer. Yeah. So if you have a freshwater swamp and it has 30 centimeters of organic matter, then we don't call it a peatland, because in Indonesia, the legal definition is the layer must be at least 50 centimeters thick. So then the problem becomes detecting how thick is the organic layer, which is already a challenge in Indonesia, yeah, because also people want to know how deep the peat is. And actually, Pat Gusti was one of the successful contestants for the Indonesian Peatland Prize. So they found one strategy to use a very big electromagnet hanging from a helicopter to detect the thickness of organic layer. And I think maybe Pat Gusti will say more, but I think there are some attempts to try to miniaturize this, to use a drone maybe or something like this. But otherwise, yeah, it's just a matter of going out there on foot and trying to measure the depth of the organic layer. And only then can you know if you're looking at a freshwater swamp forest, or if we should consider it a peatland. Okay, so for the second question from Pat Wahyu, thanks very much. That's also a really good question. So actually, that was one of the reasons that I was interested in these spaceborne LiDAR tools. So, I mean, I completely agree. The airborne LiDAR is very expensive. And these spaceborne LiDAR platforms, they cover all of Indonesia. The drawback is that the data are very sparse. So one of them is on the International Space Station. This one is called Jedi, G-E-D-I, just like, from the movie. And the other one is called Atlas, and it's on a satellite called ICESat-2. And they have two different orbits. ICESat has a more sparse orbit, but both of them will cover all of Indonesia. And so then the tricky aspect is just how to cope with the large spacing between the tracks. So two tracks might be 900 meters apart or something like this. And so that's what we're trying to do with this, the strategy I was discussing in my talk. We're trying to find a way to figure out what's happening with the peatland overall by combining those spaceborne LiDAR data with other remote sensing products. So I hope that helped to answer the question. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alex. And those are all the questions. So I would like to again thank you for our attendees for your contribution, and also the speakers. All the informations that we received today hopefully can make us understand better all of the approaches to working together as well, and use innovative ways to manage our peatlands. And also, before we go, allow me to summarize several points as the key takeaways from today's discussion. With the present condition, climate change has caused a faster rate of peat decomposition, and in addition to anthropogenic activities, has shifted the peat as a carbon source, making the ecosystem prone to fires. Now, knowing the latest innovations that support effective peatland management will help not only protect the peat ecosystem itself, but contribute directly to nature-based solutions in overcoming global climate solutions. And also the multi-stakeholders cooperations, including the government, community, private sector, and universities, will provide a positive value for the resilience of sustainable peatland management. We've got a lot that we learned during the past 3 days. And to conclude our webinar series, I respectfully invite Pak Ruslandi as Terrestrial Program Director of YEKAN to officially close this event, followed by a group photo session. We haven't done that in the previous session. So yes, let's give a big warm welcome to Pak Ruslandi. Go ahead, Pak.
Yeah, thank you, Mbak Alia. Good morning, everyone. Selamat pagi, Bapak-Bapak dan Ibu semuanya. Jadi, let's begin my closing remark by thanking all parties involved in this successful event. So first and foremost, I would like to express my appreciation to the speakers for their valuable contribution to our webinar with the title From Science to Policy, Tropical Peatland as Role in Mitigating Climate Change. My colleagues from BRIN, Pak Anang, Professor Haruni Krishnawati, also Bapak Bondan, thank you all. We also thanks for Bapak Agus Yasin from BRGM for his presentations on the policies and programs from the government for peatland restorations. Also, Dr. Israr Albar from the Ministry of Environment and Forestry. Thank you for providing informations. Who was joining us, from Portugal at 3 a.m. in the morning. Thank you very much. And of course, we also thanks to Dr. Andrew Smith from the Oregon State University, Dr. Alison Holt from the Stanford University, Dr. Alec Cobb from the Singapore MIT Alliance, and last but not the least is Professor Gusti Anshari from Tanjung Pura University. Next, we also thanks to our donor, Bezos Earth Fund, and also the Nature Conservancy for making this peatland science project and this webinar possible. We thanks our partner, Tanjung Pura University, Oregon State University, Stanford University, Bogor Agricultural University, Ministry of Environment and Forestry, and BRIN for the great collaborations. We also would like to thanks to our team for organizing this event and ensuring it run smoothly. And lastly, our deep gratitude goes to all audience who have participated in this seminar since day one. And so over the last 3 days, we learned a lot about tropical peatland. In the first day, we learned about Indonesia has 6% of the global NCS mitigation potential, also 10% of the tropical-wide NCS mitigating potential, whereas about 70% of the potential come from the peatland. We also learned that the need of research to better understanding the peatland and the emission data, especially to minimize the knowledge gap. And then in the following days, in the second day, our speaker explained their work on fire suppressions for bare pit management. We learned that there is no one solution for fire problems. And also we learned that, how the water level is important to prevent fires, and making the pit wet is the priority for the prevention strategy. Also, we learned that the Indonesian government takes this issue seriously from the policy standpoint, and also directly handling affected areas, and of course across the country. And the last day, today, we learned the importance of the pit ecosystem to provide environmental services to keep with the climate change, and also how the pit has functions as the huge storage for the carbon. And of course, we also learn about the appropriate policies, innovations in the technology, and also research are needed to prevent and also deal with the fires in the pit ecosystem. And also, we also learned that we need to strengthen our infrastructure facilities, community capacity, and also cooperations, as well as collaborations between institutions for the long-term solutions strategies. And the last is on the expectation from this webinar, that we hope the webinar could be learning exchange platform to strengthen collaborations and research-based policy for sustainable pit management. We also, of course, call for the more collaborative work in the future to support our commitment for pit conservations and restorations in Indonesia, also in the global. And to sum up, the peatland is the answer for sustainable Indonesia. The science we are conducting show that we can help combat climate change and effectuate positive, long-lasting change for both the people and the planet. For the world we depend on, it depends on us for sustainable Indonesia. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pak Ruslandi, for the closing remarks. And before we let everyone to go back to their other duties of the day, now I'm inviting all of the speakers and also colleagues from BRIN as well as Yekan to have a group photo together. So kindly open your video camera and give us your best pose. All right. Is everybody ready? Let's see. Okay. Maybe Mbak Nisa can also join, and other ones from BRIN as well as Yekan for this group photo. All right, so I'm gonna count from 3. Okay, we have all the speakers, so please hear. Okay, are you ready? Give us your best smile. 3, 2, 1, and perhaps another one. 3, 2, 1. Okay, so should we do another photo session? Is anybody else joining?
Yes, from BRIN, Mbak Rahma Alia.
Okay, we're still waiting for BRIN and also Yekan colleagues to join this photo session. And Mbak Nisa, are you here? Don't forget to activate your video camera. Shall we try again? Okay, let me just count down. I hope everyone is ready. I can't really see if everyone's here and ready with the video cam. All right, let's count down. 3, 2, 1, and another one. 3, 2, 1. I hope that covers. I saw this from Pak Bondan. This is like, okay, Chuan in Indonesia. Okay, so finally we've come to the end of the 3-day webinar series. We do hope, and the committee also hopes, that it's fruitful and provided great aspects to support a better, greater, sustainable Indonesia. Thank you again once more, and see you on another event of BRIN and Yekan. Have a great day to you all, and salam lestari. Bye.
Thank you.
Terima kasih semuanya.
Terima kasih Alex, terima kasih Prof. Gusti, teman-teman ya. Pak
Terima
Ruslandi.
kasih Alex, Prof.
Terima kasih.
Gusti,
Thank you,
Pak
everyone.
Bondan. Thank you Mbak Alia, keren banget.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Mbak
Mbak
Lisa,
Alia,
thank you. You
makasih.
are the one who's keren.
If you don't manage development, you lose nature.